Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight for our Village of Alsip committee meeting. Today is April 12th, 2021. We'll call this meeting to order at 7:33 p.m. Can you call the roll, please?
Yes. Trustee Dalzell?
Here.
Trustee Zielinski is absent at this time. He is unsure if he will be able to make it this evening. Trustee Juarez?
Here.
Trustee McLaughlin?
Here.
Trustee Murphy?
Here.
Trustee Nava-Esparza?
Here.
Mayor Ryan?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Officers report, starting with mine. Had a couple of great meetings last week. When I appreciate all the department heads sitting in with me. I know we met with Rick Labriola from Labriola Bakeries. Rick is bringing his business back to Alsip, and we're going to be he will be manufacturing Stan's Donuts in Alsip. So I guess he's got some great accounts with some major food chain stores and even some frozen goods as well too. But he's going to go back in his other facility that used to be, he sold it to J&J Snack Foods, and now he's going to be going back in there to be Stan's Donuts. I was at a meeting for an organization last Thursday night, and I mentioned it, and some of the guys at the meeting said anybody had a Stan's Donut yet? Yeah? They said they're big. That's all I heard was they're big.
They're good.
Yeah. So he's got a couple of big orders to fill to start off. I don't want to say names of the stores, but he's got some really big orders to fill, and we're trying to help him get back into that location yet too. So we wish him luck. Also, we took a meeting with a local business person who's interested in possibly developing the Alsterta property at 119th and Pulaski to maybe make professional offices over there. And it might be ideal for something like that where it offers more parking and so forth yet too. We'd love to have more retail if we could, but that is a difficult spot with the way it's L-shaped going around Charlie's Auto Repair over there then too. So maybe looking to try and help him. And then the Plan Commission may see something real soon with, we have somebody under contract with Red Roof Inn, so we might see a development going over that way too. So we'll look forward to seeing the Plan Commission see that. I'm talking with that developer right now, and unfortunately, that's about as much as I can say about those because everybody's got their plans, and you can't show those. You can't show everybody's hand until they get it done. So we appreciate their interest in our community. The only item I had on my agenda this evening, Trustee Juarez, right before the meeting started, I spoke with Mike Hackett from Gas and Wash. He's got a meeting tomorrow with building department. We're still talking about the fence over on Klossner, and he's going to have tomorrow. Yeah, we'll pull it off for tonight. Okay. Yeah. He's going to be. I asked him to come in next week, and he can make a full presentation to us next week. So, and one item on your agenda was the presentation by Dominic Hewlett of also Food for Less. So Dominic's here with us. Hi, Dominic. Thanks for joining us. And go ahead. I'll let you speak to what you want to propose.
Great. Good. Right here is fine?
Yes.
Good evening. My name's Dominic Hewitt. I work for Curo Group. 1045 is one of my clients. 1045 is a real estate group that partners with Food for Less. 1045 and Food for Less have put together a specific, detailed proposal for the implementation of video gaming, and they're looking for your support for this business endeavor tonight. I can go through this packet, but feel free to interrupt me at any time with any questions or comments. The players, the Food for Less, the retailer, which I'm assuming everyone is familiar with. They have locations scattered throughout the Metro Chicago region. 1045 is their real estate partner, and in this proposal, the 1045 would be the license holder. This would make 1045 give them the assumption of all liability and compliance as it relates both to video gaming and to the on-premise consumption liquor license. And I can get into that, the policies and procedures they have in place in a little bit more detail later. Curo Group, that's my group, and our terminal operator partner, J&J Ventures, who services and runs the machines. As I'm assuming the board understands, because of the video gaming locations that are currently in the Alsip market, but in order to have video gaming, you must have an on-premise consumption liquor license. This is not in Food for Less or 1045's plan to become a bar or derive any sort of significant revenue from the purchases of alcoholic beverages for on-premise consumptions. In fact, and it's detailed later in this slide deck, but they have policies and procedures in place to disincentivize the purchases of these beverages. However, increased pressure from Illinois has made this license imperative to compete. Rising property taxes, minimum wage increases, we have seen grocery stores grow into the video gaming industry. And obviously, Alsip would receive a portion of this revenue as dictated by the Illinois Gaming Board. We forecast this to be around $21,600, and that's based off of publicly available statistics from the Illinois Gaming Board. Food for Less gaming procedures. There'll be a staff member from Food for Less that will be responsible for supervising the gaming area. This is in addition to an ID scanner. What the ID scanner does is it requires a valid 21 plus ID for a patron or employee to enter the gaming room. The door temporarily unlocks, and then upon closure locks again. Additionally, our terminal operator partner J&J Ventures will be providing cameras and remote monitoring. All of these things considered will make this one of the most secure video gaming establishments in the state of Illinois. The on-premise consumption piece. Like I said before, these policies and procedures are meant to disincentivize the purchases of beverages. However, they must be available in order to have video gaming. The alcohol, the on-premise consumption license that we are proposing that 1045 hold will be separate from the package license that Food for Less currently holds. The consumption of these beverages will be limited to the enclosed video gaming area, and there will be absolutely no mixing of the packaged beverages from the on-premise beverages. The retail clerk will have a separate cooler, and after ringing up that employee and carding them, they will hand deliver the alcoholic beverage for on-premise consumption into the gaming room. And these are meant to be priced at concession pricing to further disincentivize consumption. Again, it's not in Food for Less's business plan to become a bar, and they don't want to do anything to hurt their image or their core business. There will be no cash handling by Food for Less. All cash will be dealt with in the redemption terminal inside the separate enclosed gaming area. COVID protection measures. There will be dividers between each video gaming terminal if they're not 6 feet apart. Masks are required to be worn at all times, and there will be no congregating around the machines. We will keep these in place as long as the Illinois Gaming Board guides us to these practices. The next few slides go through the store layout of the current Alsip store. What we're proposing is putting it in the old banking area. Food for Less and 1045 think this is the best use of the space. And the following slides are the prototype for this enclosed gaming area. And obviously there will be an ID scanner on this door that was indicated in a couple slides back. Are there any, may I ask if there are any questions at this time?
Don, just for the benefit of the public, we actually do record all these meetings, and the camera's faced on us, not on you, and so forth. But first off, what Dominic's showing us here in his slide presentation and in our packets here is that, as he just described, there is decorative glass, and it's an enclosed area within the store. And Dominic, when you and I met a few weeks back, I did ask you, and just so everybody understands, Kroger owns Food for Less, do they not?
That is correct.
And Kroger is okay, Kroger's and obviously endorsing this?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, obviously, it's a major chain, and I just want to let the public know that that's who the sponsor is, who's really
Yes.
the backer and
Yes.
stuff in there, too. Okay.
Right. Mayor, I got two things for us on the fire department side is
Yeah.
A, there has to be a redundant system. If we get a call there, we cannot rely on using somebody's ID. So there has to be a system within our Knox box that gives us emergency access to the door. And the door to the gaming room must open to the outside, not to the inside.
Understood.
Okay. So, yeah, if obviously you're going to have a lock on that, you're going to have a lock on this door in some capacity. So if, like the chief says, you have a Knox box there, we have a universal key to get in there then?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Are there any surrounding municipalities that have video gaming in their supermarkets at this time, like Oak Lawn, Crestwood?
Burbank does, and we've seen more and more Metro Chicago's. I can give you a detailed list, but we've seen more and more Metro Chicago areas allow video gaming inside grocery stores. We don't know that they'll all look like this, but we have seen it, and more throughout the state. But I can definitely follow up with a detailed list of where those locations are.
Thank you.
And Burbank's got this now, too?
Burbank has recently been approved for a grocery store. That is correct. That's one I know off the top of my head.
Okay.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead.
You said that the scanner at the door will read age. Will it also limit capacity?
We don't have that capability at this time, but the hourly walkthrough should limit capacity.
Mayor, I'd ask this for the police chief, but he's not here. Are you aware of any...
Deputy, sir.
Oh, is he here? Oh, there he is.
John's hiding back there.
Sean, are you aware of any calls that have been through the police department of any problems with video gaming since we've brought them in to the village?
Since implementation, we have had 0 calls at any video gaming within the village.
Okay, thank you.
Again, for the benefit of the public, Deputy Chief Schultz wasn't mic'd up, but he did say that we have not had any calls since inception for that. Thank you. Dominic, if this is approved, how quickly is this going to, are you planning on implementing this right away, or?
We would as soon as possible, with obviously meeting all the restrictions of the Illinois Gaming Board as well.
Okay. Becky, we need to create a liquor license. Well, obviously, they've got a store license, but we need, what, an FG for this then, too? Okay. I think you're right. I think you're right. It's just because you're only going to offer beer and wine.
That is correct.
Right. Okay. Yeah, much like you're exactly right, Chief. Much like Mariano's, that has it actually has that's actually a full service, isn't it? That's in there.
I think it's just beer and wine.
Is it? I've seen it. I've never sat it there. Okay.
But they can also walk around the store. He's saying that they're not going to allow them to walk around the store with it.
Are you going to allow that too, Dominic?
They'll be limited to consuming the alcohol inside the gaming room.
Just in the game, not in the store proper.
Not in the store proper.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that clerk, I haven't done that either. You know, don't walk around the store with a glass of wine or something like that.
Cup of coffee, maybe.
Not even that. You know. I know everyone's familiar with the concept, obviously, of gaming. We've got enough of it. Certainly, this is a first, which is why I certainly didn't want to step in the way of your presentation, so I haven't had any discussions with the trustees about this. You always want to present an idea like this fresh, and like anything else in this world, everybody's got a different concept, to give you a so-called competitive edge. And we're blessed to have 4 grocery stores in our community. And while I've got some other interest with hotels and whatnot that do not have that at this time, I mean, If people believe this helps their business, that's certainly their discretion. It's their plan, not ours. And which is why we have a board of 6 people that help decide that and stuff then too. But did anyone else have questions for Dominic at this time?
No.
So, Dominic, what I will do is, we can certainly put this to a, we're going to have to create a liquor license for this, even with the beer and wine, correct, Beck? So, I'll have to get that on the agenda for next week, because that'll be a board meeting for that. And so we can put both the concept of allowing this along with that particular license to be considered at the next meeting. Right. Because there's not, just the license on our side. And everything else is through the state. But it will be allowed, let's put it this way, this will be a first in a regular grocery store venue. I know we've got it in convenience stores right now and so forth, and it's kind of worded that way then too at the same time, so.
Mayor, if I could attest that this is a very popular concept in Las Vegas, as I did go to a grocery store to buy a gallon of milk. It cost me $247.
Good for you. Good for you, yeah. I'm talking about the part where you admitted that anyway then too, so.
It wasn't a good day.
Apparently not,
Will this need to be referred to planning and zoning as well?
No, because there's no change there's no change in zoning. Everything is what it is. Yeah.
But to address the chief's, the building review of the space?
No, that'll be with the building, that'll be with the building commissioner. That's all. That'll be an oversight matter that we'll have to take a look at. Compliance, let's put it that way, because you're going to need a building permit for that anyway then too. So.
Understood.
Right. Okay. Well, Dominic, good luck with this, and thank you for bringing it into us then too, okay?
Great, thank you.
Sure. That's all. Go ahead.
A hourly walkthrough, my hesitancy for that. Closed area. You're going to have people in there. All of a sudden, I walk in, and I bring in somebody underage, and that person may or may not be detected until whatever later. I understand the monitoring could be there, but doesn't necessarily mean it is being actively viewed.
Are the windows darkened that you can see into it?
Again, this is a prototype. So if that's a situation where the city would like to see them not as darkened, then I can address that.
Because this area is it?
You can't see in.
Right.
It's against the
Oh, so you can't see in? No.
juveniles can't look in.
Okay. My only thing was just because it's near the front of the store with all the management people. That's the only reason I was asking if it's.
We can make those windows clear, as you've seen in video gaming establishments. A lot of them at bars or restaurants, even convenience stores throughout the state, have simply a rope. So we think this will be more secure. That, in addition to the remote monitoring through the cameras that our terminal operator partner J&J Ventures is providing.
Dominic, I'm pretty familiar. I've read the rules on this a few times, and I do know that one of the bigger rules there, to kind of what Trustee Dalzell is alluding to, as well as you have to have constant monitoring. I know you're saying that we'll do it per hour, but the rule I've explained, this goes through the state of Illinois, and the state says you have to have constant monitoring there. It doesn't say anything about on the hour, so that whole
the rule at the state level is direct line of sight from the entrance.
That's what I'm saying.
Which we absolutely will have.
Okay.
And we have cameras inside the gaming area as well.
I'm just curious how Food for Less is going to monitor it, because I'm a daily shopper at Food for Less. Daily I go. And half the time the deli's closed because there's not enough staff, and the lines are all the way to the back of the store because they don't have enough people to check out. So I'm curious how they're going to monitor that.
There will be guidance from our team at the store level upon these video gaming terminals going live. This took Food for Less and 1045 a long time to get approved internally, and they're comfortable. They're selecting specific stores where they know that this will work and that they will have both a direct line of sight and the constant monitoring from the cameras inside the gaming room.
Okay. All right, thanks, Dominic, I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Then we have the clerk's report. Clerk Putzel.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. Presentation of the March 2021 IDOT motor fuel tax allotment in the amount of $54,579.41. And then we have presentation of numerous meeting minutes. The December 28th, 2020, that is the final old, for lack of a better way of putting it, meeting minutes, and the other ones that are on here will bring us current through last week, which is the presentation of minutes for March 15th board meeting, March 22nd special board meeting, the March 29th committee meeting, and the April 5th board meeting from last week. And that is all, Mayor Ryan.
You know, I was looking for one recently, and I didn't see it on there. You might want to double check, because you're saying now we're current with these? Double check the special board meeting that we had for November 9th, 2020. I didn't see that one posted. I was actually deferring to that for something. I didn't see it up there.
It was approved on November 16th.
The committee was.
The special board meeting I also have down here is being approved on November 16th. Maybe it wasn't scanned and uploaded to the website, but that's the date that I have that it was approved.
12/16 of 20? Okay.
11/16 of 20.
Okay, 11.
But I will verify for you.
All right. Okay, so you're just doing a presentation. We weren't approving anything tonight?
Correct.
The next week, all right. We have the public forum. Did anyone in the audience wish to address the board tonight? Nobody? Sir, go ahead. Well. We just ask you to talk into a mic, that's all. Okay.
Hi, my name is Adam Irvine. I'm a resident for over 12 years of Alsip. Just recently, last month, I received a citation for garbage can being left out.
Okay.
My wife and I both got vaccinated, decided to visit mother-in-law out of state, left my 22-year-old son in charge of returning them in. He obviously didn't.
Mm-hmm.
He's paying the fine, no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that upsets me is first-time offense, never received any warning, nothing. And we were told that we had to go to court or we'll get a $1,000 fine.
Okay.
I'm upset about it because, A, I've never had a ticket in Alsip. I've been a law-abiding citizen my entire life here. And to not receive a warning was one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Two, to be told I had to go to court during a recession, during times of COVID. I wasn't very appeased about going, but I did. Unfortunately, I've been out of work since before Thanksgiving,
Mm-hmm.
and to be forced to go to something or be fined $1,000 is ridiculous in my mind. Also, there was no way of paying it out of pocket. There's no fine amount on the ticket. I called the health director, health department, whoever her name is. I heard
Linda.
I apologize. She gave me a really nasty attitude on the phone, told me either go to the court or it's a $1,000 fine. And I've talked to numerous other residents who weren't able to go, thought they were going to be, just $50, $100 fine.
Mm-hmm.
Then they got slapped with a $1,000 fine. I think it's ridiculous. When I went to court and I addressed that with the judge, they told me that it's a committee meeting that has to be done through today. Something it has to be presented to the village of Alsip, that they had no power to do anything there. So this is the reason why I'm here.
Oh, okay.
So what could be done? Because
Well, certainly, Mr. Irvine, I appreciate you bringing that to our attention and stuff then too. And I'm kind of surprised that the hearing officer didn't have a better answer for you yet too. That in other words, you're there for a reason. You're there to address the citation. Deputy Chief, could you speak to that at all too?
Yes, the reason why it could not be prepaid is the fact that it was a compliance citation. So there is no minimum fine to give. It's an appearance in order to come into compliance with it. So there wasn't an answer to give him that would satisfy him. The fact that it was written on as a compliance. A compliance is a must appear. That's how the ordinance is structured.
Okay, so, again, these are all being recorded, so there's a lot of people scratching their head, maybe at home watching us, but so you're saying because it's a compliance ticket, you have to make a court appearance here? Okay. And as far as, Mr. Irvine, did you get a $1,000 citation?
No, it ended up being a $25 fine, which is no big deal.
$25, okay.
But the point that I'm bringing up is,
You were told.
I was
it was
told I
if you
had to
didn't show
come.
up.
So
Right.
my wife and my wife took off work in order to go.
Mm-hmm.
I know only one of us had to go, but that's just the point. It's a $25 fine.
Mm-hmm.
If I take a half day off work, that's multiple hundreds of dollars out of my pocket versus a $25 fine.
And I think,
In times like these, it's ridiculous.
I understand what you're saying, and I think, Chief, if I'm going to say this correctly, typically that's a $100 fine, correct? So by you making the appearance, and they, for lack of a better word, they discounted it because it was a first-time offense, like you said, they brought it down to $25 for you. I understand what you're saying, though. It would have been nice if it was only $25, you could have paid that, without having to lose any time from work. However, I guess that it would be correct to say, again, because a lot of people are saying they don't understand the difference between the two. That's where, when they say in committee, that's what they're talking about, is to come to us and say, hey, listen, can we take a fine like this and make it that much less by committee, by ordinance? We can say, listen, that should only be a $25 fine instead of $100. That's what they're saying, where committees come into play. Whereas, when we're looking for compliance, is why they set the fine the way they do, is at $100. In lieu of the fact, you might have some folks that are, they commit this offense often, and whereas that 100 is going to stand, it might, get silly if they were frequent flyers and they didn't do it all the time then too. So I understand, it's the worst of, which side of the sword do you want and stuff, because it hurts to say that you lost time off, or your wife might have lost time from work to come in here to address it, but she did save the $75 by doing it, as opposed to like the board saying, can we implement something to streamline that whole process then too. And I get it. I guess that's one of those things, we probably couldn't do it in a moment's notice like right now, but certainly you bring up a great point. It's a garbage can fine, and it's something where the board can talk about it and stuff like that.
I could see if, I was speeding, if I went through a stop sign, there's, give us, if they would have put a $100 fine on the ticket or appear to court, then I would have had no problem. You give the residents an option of either paying it or fighting it. That's fine.
Right.
But we didn't get that option, and that's the reason why I'm upset.
Understood. But and obviously the hearing officer tried to make it. They considered the mitigation to say that this you're a first timer, and obviously you understand the rule and so forth then too, or at least your 22-year-old does now then too, and to say that we understand, you understand, and let's take it to this level then too. So, Trustee Alzell, you were our police chief before. How do you feel about the matter?
I agree. Municipality I work presently, we have various ordinances that allow for prepayment, and obviously a situation like this, there is the benefit. A lot of the code ordinance violations, they're meant to bring people there to make certain that they've remedied the situation. I don't think that leaving a garbage can out is one of those serious enough offenses. So what I'd like to suggest is that I will review the ordinances for the MVs and sit with the various members, ordinance and legislation, and maybe come up and fine-tune those things to take care of this.
That'd be great. So, Adam, like Trustee Alzell was saying, then, and we can certainly compare our notes to other municipalities, and without rewriting the book, Trustee Alzell he works for a notable other municipality at the same time, and you make a great point. For like a garbage can scenario like this, we can certainly take a look at that and stuff then too. And maybe streamline that whole process, like you said. This way nobody's losing time off work, and everybody understands what's at stake at the same time, too. But, no, it's good that you come out and you bring that to our attention, because certainly I didn't know what you just said. And
It's like, I never heard of the $1,000 ever.
Well, it is if
The
you...
default order.
Where does that come from?
If you default, you don't show up for court, then it...
$1,000?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's...
Really?
Yeah, that's...
That's ridiculous.
That's crazy, yeah.
Well,
That is, I would lose sleep over that over a garbage can.
yeah.
That needs to be rewritten. That's a joke.
And I spoke to a couple families on Facebook through different pages, and they thought it would only be maybe a $100, $2 fine. Her husband's name was on the ticket, so he couldn't come in because he was working out of state at the time. And so she said, well, I'll just let it go. They could just charge me. It ended up being a $1,000 fine. And he just got back to work, and it hurt them really bad. So,
But there's ways that you can get around that, too. There's a petition to set aside. You've got 21 days to do that. You can contest that order through the court. You've got 35 days for that. So there's other avenues for those people. The unfortunate thing is that in a perfect world, people would be able to attend, or they could sit there and they could submit via writing what their reason was. Oftentimes, a lot of people look at it and they kick the can down the road. Now we have another hearing for those people who didn't show up. People don't take notice, and like you said, the unfortunate thing is because it didn't have a dollar amount, but people don't take notice of something until all of a sudden it's, wow, $1,000, and then it becomes important. So a lot of this is to sit there and to make sure that there is compliance, because there's reasons for these rules.
There's been issues before where people just keep coming, they get extended, they don't show up, they get extended, they get, and unfortunately, and we have the same thing on the fire side. We write municipal violations also, and there's no separation between this violation, it's all one blanket, all falls under municipal violations. That's the downside of it, so.
that's why I think something should be done.
Yep, you're absolutely right. I agree with you.
And, another point as well, obviously, our mail system is top-notch.
Sure. Or you kind.
I'm trying to be nice. And it was sent certified mail. If I didn't receive that, I've had numerous times where they said they delivered it, and I didn't receive it. Luckily, I received this. I was able to find it. But what if somebody didn't get that? How would they know to be to court?
We've had that, and you can contact the clerk at the police department, and she'll change that, because we've had the same thing. We've had people that receive their notice for court 2 days after municipal violation court.
Commissioner Irvine, one more point too, as Trustee Dalzell was saying, is, while let's say, for instance, if somebody missed a court date and while you're in default is what gets everyone's attention, so it's $1,000, but certainly, we certainly honor the opportunity that if you had anyone had other circumstances, and as the trustee said, if you put that in writing, we'll certainly get you another court date and stuff then too, to let you address the hearing officer another time. So it doesn't happen often, but like anything else, sometimes things happen. Like you said, somebody could have got sick, somebody could have been whatever, and just couldn't have got there, and it's just a communication thing somehow then too. So.
And I understand people have lives. Things happen. I've heard a lot of excuses last week when I went, so I understand. Ignorance isn't an excuse, whatever. But I wanted to bring it to your attention. That's all.
Understood. And again, I'm glad the hearing officer handled it the way she did then too. To understand that this is the first time, and obviously take that in consideration then too. So they run a good court, and hopefully it was. I stay out of there. Everybody's got their job to do. I do sit in once in a while just to make sure it's coming, just so I understand too how things are being handled. I've seen they're pretty fair, and the deputy chief's in there quite often yet too. So I've seen it's a good fair process. But you make a great point, and Trustee Dalzell, as you said, I appreciate that. We're going to have a discussion with ordinance legislation, and we'll see if we can streamline some of that then too. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could you sign in, please, sir? Thank you.
Did anybody else want to talk to the board, address the board, I should say? Okay. Thank you. Next, standing committee reports. Finance and IT, Trustee McLaughlin.
As usual, I will have the list of payroll and accounts payable for approval next week. And for the rest of the agenda, I'm going to turn it over to Joyce.
Okay. First on the agenda is audit and entity controls. And I basically did a scrape out of just one document that I have to respond to for the audit. And what I want to do is to bring, and this is for discussion only, there's nothing to vote on here, but what I want to do is prepare you for the fact that we have to put some policies and procedures in place. We have to have order to how we do things. And if you look at some of these questions, they're not easy to answer. How does the entity establish and communicate policies to promote acceptable business practices, ethical values, and integrity among its employees? How do we do that? Well, part of it can be through that employee training, but we have to start to come up with ways to communicate those things to our employees. We know that. We know we should be acting ethically and morally and so forth, but how do we communicate that? We have to come up with a policy about how this is enacted. And that's just one question, and this is a very high level. This asks about how do you folks actually govern? How do you communicate? How do you know what your responsibilities are? I'm not saying we write a policy around that, but these are some difficult questions that have to be answered, and it goes into great detail. I think I had 8 documents that I had to answer for internal control. And there's some stiff stuff in there. And so I want to make you aware that there will be policies coming forth that addresses some of these things. One of the things, and I mentioned to Mayor that I think this last week, and it's in this list here too, do we have an IT policy? We need one. That is one of the things I had to answer an entire questionnaire about IT and how security is determined. What kind of network security do we have in detail, not just high level, in detail. So I want to prepare you that this will be coming forth over the next year. I want to tick off as many of these boxes. I'm not going to try to throw a lot of stuff at you, but I want to try to tick off some boxes for next year. So this was just a note to say take a look at some of these things. And try to understand why I'm moving forward with certain ideas and concepts. Any questions? Okay. Next to the capital asset policies and procedures. We have been dinged in our last few audits, I would say the last 4 at least, for not having in place a monitoring, acquisition, and disposal process or policy for our capital assets. So this policy is intended to address, or to begin to address that. So this policy describes what we're trying to do here. If you go to page 2, the most important thing that everybody has to refer to is that capital asset threshold, and to explain some of the reasonings for some of the settings on that I have there. Movable property is set at $5,000. Well, industrial appraisal doesn't insure anything under 10. So why am I putting this at 5? Well, if we acquire any fixed asset through a grant, which there's a possibility of it. In fact, Chief has actually applied for a grant for that ambulance. We're going to be acquiring infrastructure assets via grants. So there's definitely going to be some things that we acquire more than that's used with grant money. If you read the uniform guidance, the federal law for grant money, and the state has adopted the uniform grant guidance, the limit is $5,000. You must keep track of any fixed asset that is valued at $5,000 or more. So that's why I've set this at $5,000. We have to track the asset anyway. So why would we have part of our assets identified as a $5,000 cap and part of our assets identified at $10,000? So therefore, I set the movable property at $5,000. Computer software is $50,000. That's usually a big piece of software. So,
That seems a little high to me.
but to capitalize it, if you think about, remember, in other words, we're going to spread the expense out over a number of years. So,
3?
is it worth expensing out a piece of capital, a piece of software over an extended period of time? Basically, 3 years is what our payout is. I mean, these are adjustable. I'm open to suggestions. If you would like to lower that, we can lower that. What do you think is reasonable?
I mean, in my industry, I'm used to anything over 10.
For software?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, that's doable. Buildings and improvements is $20,000. Leasehold improvements, this is where we're leasing a piece of property, where we're probably never going to have this, where we're leasing a piece of property and we make an improvement to it. That's set at $100,000. Land and non-depreciable land, obviously improvements are not depreciable because it has no useful life, it's forever. Depreciable land improvements is $25,000. We don't really have any historical treasures or works of art. Infrastructure site improvements are set at $50,000. The difference between building improvements and infrastructure site improvements, think of infrastructure as anything that's on the ground. It's a gravel parking lot. It's a sewer line. It's a drainage ditch. It's a light pole attached to something, to the ground.
Hey, Joyce, did you mean for that one to be 50 or 5?
5.
Because it's 5 on the list. Okay, but you just said 50.
I'm sorry, 50. I meant 5. Excuse me. So that's the difference between infrastructure and building improvements. Building improvements are anything attached to a building. But infrastructure and site improvements have to do with the ground. Bridges, that kind of stuff.
If we're going to depreciate them over 20 to 40 years, do we really want to go as low as 5?
We don't have to.
Or should it be more in line with the building and improvements at 20?
We could. I'm definitely open to suggestions.
That would at least be my recommendation on that one.
That makes more sense.
To depreciate $5,000 over the next 20 years just seems like a waste of time and energy.
Depending on what it is, if it has that kind of life, because it is an infrastructure project. But that 20 is fine.
I just don't know where we'd spend $5,000 on anything that it would really last for 20 years.
Okay. Any other comments on this particular table? Okay, this is all going to be straight line depreciation for all of our assets. In other words, whatever we determine is a useful life, we take that value and divide it by however many years, and that's what we expense every year. So it's fairly simple. The policy goes into descriptions about what the different types of categories there are. We have at the bottom of page 4, we start a table for more of the movable equipment that we might come across and what those useful lives might be. We have different ratings for police vehicles as opposed to just vehicles that we might buy and use. It discusses easements. And now for page 6 is the most important part of this, and this is the capital asset improvement requisition procedures. And what I've done is I've laid out a procedure here for us to potentially follow. What I'd like to do is have the department head submit an authorization for a capital asset requisition. The acquisition form is found at the back of this policy. Then I want the department head to take that to a department committee meeting to get approval or denial and to move forward with this to the village property. Then from Village Property Committee, I want them to review and approve it. And from, at this point, it needs to go to the Finance Department to be reviewed, to be included in the capital needs list for the capital planning tool for the fiscal year budget. And the budget will be approved by the board. So at least there's two sets of eyes, two committees that got to see these assets before they were put onto the budget. If the acquisition is outside the budget year, it's still going to have the department head fill out that acquisition. It'll go to the department committee, the village committee, and the finance committee, and then finally to the village board. If it's outside the budget year and they need to acquire a capital asset, in other words, it's December and, oh my gosh, we have to buy this, it needs to go through an additional committee called the finance committee to make sure that we have the funds available to buy it.
Just give us an example of what you just said.
Chief wrecks the ladder truck. We got to buy a new ladder truck.
Somebody wrecks the ladder truck.
Oh, no, Chief did it.
Apparently driven with me.
So we have a major acquisition that we have to do that we didn't budget for. I have no problems putting into the general fund, at least, in some sort of reserve of about, I'm just talking here, say $250,000 for those kind of oopsies, for emergencies, reserve for emergencies, because it happens. But something like that, we wouldn't even have, we wouldn't know that's going to happen. We aren't planning on that happening.
With insurance, wouldn't that just be the easiest way to reconcile?
Well, that's true. Insurance would cover some of it, but it's a 20-year-old truck, correct?
Right.
What are we going to get out of that? Is it replacement costs that we have?
We saw that when our last ladder truck we had, it was up for testing, and the ladder crashed. Because it was half of one manufacturer and another half a manufacturer, the value of the truck was roughly 600 and something thousand, whatever it was, when it was new. The insurance we got was considerably less. So to Joyce's point, the insurance isn't going to buy you a brand new ladder truck. It's only going to give you whatever that value is for it. And then we'll have to come up with the rest. And that's exactly what happened with our ladder truck that's why we ended up with the one in 2002. So only, 100 and something thousand, whatever it was from the insurance that we got for that ladder truck.
I don't understand the purpose of 3 meetings in order to approve and purchase something. And I get an emergency aspect of it, but we review these and we authorize these, and whether we have 1, 2, or 3 meetings to discuss it, just seems like we're having a whole bunch of meetings or something that we can have reviewed, authorized accordingly. And if it's a matter of the monies, obviously we're not going to order something if we don't have the money to pay for it.
I guess that's interesting in a roundabout way. That's what I was trying. That's what I was trying to get at was.
Okay.
I felt we had. I mean, I can appreciate the opportunity. What you're saying is you're giving us a policy. You're giving us a program. And I just want to hope to avoid any redundancy. That's all. That like as Trustee Dalzell said, we're going to you first. I mean, granted, we didn't budget for whatever it may be. Let's just say, like you said, something crashed, something fell apart that we didn't budget for. It could be a new server system of some type like this, and we didn't budget for it, so we're going to go to you and say, all right, we didn't do this. The committee's got to take a look at it. The committee's going to go back to the board and say, here's the problem that we had, that this server just crashed on us in some, in some capacity, and basically we're going to have to overextend ourselves a little bit. We might have to go into our fund balance or whatever to make something like this happen.
And I'm saying, if it's anything major, we're going to authorize going out to bid for it anyway. So it's going to get board approval if it's a significant dollar amount.
So go ahead. So in other words, it's not that I'm opposed to what we're proposing here. Is like I said, this is a good policy, but I just want to make sure we're not putting too many layers into what we do already then, too.
I'm fine with that, but the reason I'm memorializing this in print is because we have been dinged for 4 years in a row for not having a capital asset policy procedure.
I'm sorry, you're right. Okay, right.
For acquisition and disposal and storage. Anyway, so that's one of the reasons I'm trying to put this in writing, so that we have a process that we follow. It's not just, well, we know kind of what to do, we need to talk to the finance director and find out if we got the money, and, we got to memorialize this. So that's why I want it in writing, and I'm not particular about the process, but it needs to be reasonable, I mean, we need to have some kind of approval process to go through. So however that is, whether it's committee of the whole approval prior to going to the full board, I'm just throwing things out right now because I don't know what other process we could put in here.
So I know we've had clean audits, and I know we've had good audits in the last year. Now we have the new company that's doing our auditing for us now. Is this based on points? Like what are we getting for doing this?
I can read to you what some of the last audits said, if you would like to know that.
I just wanted, in other words, I know there's a benefit overall, but in other words, where's the benefit with the auditor? I mean, is this not a point system?
The objective of the audit is to assure the public that we are not materially misstating the financial statements. So they look for things that could cause material misstatement. Material misstatement is big numbers. We're not talking 10 cents or $10. We're talking big money. What items usually have big price tags on them?
Capital assets.
Capital assets. Where is the likelihood for material misstatement? Right now, we don't have a way to even capture capital assets. So right now, Karen is going back through the invoices for the entire year to see if she can capture those capital assets that never got identified, never got really sent through anybody.
We don't identify them at the time of purchase, and so therefore, like you said, it's a matter of manually going through the invoices.
Correct. So, again, I'm not particular about how we do this in terms of what process we put in, but we must put it in writing.
I get that. I mean, I was just thinking now too, you could have a 35-ton air conditioner crash and not have the money to replace something like that right on hand. And
well, let's say it just goes through as an expense. We missed it. We didn't record that as a building improvement. Mm-hmm. So we just understated our building improvements on our balance sheet.
Okay, so obviously, as you started with, I think a lot of us get caught up in the process, but the goal is to have a policy in place. So. Correct.
And so I'm open to any changes to this. I can rewrite this to make it much simpler and make it less burdensome, but we have to memorialize it. It's critical.
Then I'd ask the trustees, let's take a look at it. You make a great point too, trustee. We've got things in place now, but if it means adopting, that's in writing, I can understand the benefit to it and stuff then too. Okay.
Okay. Not much else to that. And again, like I said, the requisition form is at the back of the policy. You can look at that. And then a regular recording of the capital assets. One of the things that I've started so far is I now have in my possession is the titles to the vehicles. At least to the police vehicles. I haven't gotten fire yet. But we want to be keeping those in a fireproof safe, which is a part of my office expense for this next year. For about $500, I can buy a fireproof safe that it's just a 2-drawer. I don't need anything big to be able to put these titles in. These titles are in the Village of Alsip's name. So we need to be safeguarding those. I just had Lieutenant Emick come over and get titles for those that she was auctioning off, some of the older vehicles. So it's not like it's impossible to get those titles back or anything else. One of the things we're going to be doing is keeping pictures of these vehicles in these files. We're going to be taking pictures of buildings and putting them in files. And all the repairs that we do, we're going to be taking pictures and getting those things put away. So those file cabinets in my office are going to start to become capital asset files. So anyway, just so you know, and this is going to be the tag sheet that's going to be on the front of the file, so it identifies a lot of the assets. I'm going to move on because I'm taking a lot of time here, and I apologize. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is the American Rescue Plan and how the funds are going to be used. I want to put this before you for you to start thinking about. There are about 4 ways that we can claim our $2.3 million that we're slotted to get. Some of it is through public health. That means that we have to spend the money to get reimbursed for it. One of the ways that we can get reimbursed is through proof of loss of revenue from between FY19 and FY20. And so this document that I put into the package identifies potential revenue losses. And I do it from, again, biggest to smallest, so that you can kind of get an idea of what kind of potential losses we're looking at. Now, I did some of this is in other funds. So at the bottom, I have identified, on the second page, I've identified what's allotted to the general fund, what's allotted to road and bridge, what's allotted to TIF, water, and Heritage 1 and 2 for their losses. So this makes up $1.3 million of our $2.3 million. So we have another $1 million that we can use for, and I got to get back there, I apologize. We can use them for infrastructure projects, water, and sewer. We cannot use them for road projects. So infrastructure, water, and sewer can take up the other $1 million. Again, this is something that we will have to spend the money and get reimbursed for. Whereas the revenue loss, I believe, a lot of detail hasn't come out on this yet. It looks like we're going to get our first funding batch, which is half of that money, in 90 days. So from May 1st, 90 days from then, we should have
Beginning August?
$1.1 million, yeah. So the opportunity to use this money includes water, sewer, and broadband. I don't know of any projects of broadband that we would use here in the village. We don't have a lot of rural areas, so I don't know how we would use it for broadband. Right now, the question is up as to whether this money can be used for stormwater or drainage projects or wastewater projects, so we'll have to see how that goes. So I'm putting this before you to start thinking about it. Okay?
Okay.
All right, next is the as of our findings for hotel tax audit findings. So what they did when they looked at, as of our is the company that we just contracted with to find lost revenue. So what they discovered is that we don't have anything written into our ordinance to cover short-term online rentals or online travel companies. So if anyone books through an online travel company, the village tax is not collected. I don't believe that we have any short-term rentals. Is that correct?
Right.
So the online travel companies is the main area that we want to get to, and this goes into great detail, and I really thank Azavar for going into the detail they do, for explaining why the online travel companies, the hotels will buy, or the online travel companies will buy up in bulk and get it at a very discounted rate and then sell it at an exorbitant rate. And so our taxes are not incorporated into that. So what they've suggested, they have 4 suggestions, I believe it is. We can do a new ordinance and implement an Airbnb collection agreement, equal application to all short-term rentals or online travel companies, and the providers must collect and pay tax on taxable revenues. Or we can do a new ordinance implementation specific only to online travel companies and not the short-term rentals, and therefore the online travel providers must collect and pay tax directly to the village. So think of Booking.com, or TripAdvisor, or Expedia. Those are the folks we're talking about.
Where you pay the rate up front.
They charge it to the customer, and then they Expedia and TripAdvisor send us the tax. It's not by the
No, but you're talking about situations where you're paying directly to Booking.com.
Correct.
And they remit the money to
Correct.
the hotel as opposed to the Radisson collecting it when somebody checks in.
Correct. Yes. The third option they propose is no ordinance change enacted, but Airbnb collection agreement is signed. And over-the-counter or over online travel companies and non-Airbnb providers are not impacted. So we could just do an Airbnb implementation, but since we did a search, Mayor did a search a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, or a week ago, and there's virtually no.
Alsip is not a travel destination.
No, it's not really an Airbnb kind of place.
Darn.
The fourth option is no ordinance change or collection agreement sought. So we do nothing. In other words, the fourth option is do nothing. My recommendation is that we collect from the online travel companies and not spend a lot of time on the short-term rentals.
You know, when you and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, I'm just apprehensive about, I really like this, if as of our, I can appreciate what they're pointing out, but I'd almost like to, more importantly, I'd like to see some examples of who's doing that, because one thing I don't want to do is raise fees at the hotels where they're trying to offset those costs, because, in other words.
It's not.
Huh?
It's not. It's when someone books, as Christine said, Trustee McLaughlin, excuse me. So they book through Expedia and Booking.com. It's not a charge to the hotel. The Expedia and Booking.com have already bought those hotel rooms. They bought them at deeply discounted rates, and now they're selling them out on the market. So it absolutely has no effect to the hotel itself. Mm-hmm. It's charged to the customer. I don't know of many customers that, about fees and taxes when you go and book a room. So I don't see it affecting the hotels directly at all.
No, and I've seen that before too. Obviously, my wife does it all the time. When you go online, as opposed to calling the venue directly,
Mm-hmm.
and there is a difference occasionally too, as far as what you can book.
And I have to say, I just did it this past weekend. The hotel room rates were much cheaper through Agencia than they were through going through the hotel directly. And so the hotel room I had Saturday night, I paid the fee to Agencia, not to the hotel.
Correct.
But to make your point, so as of ours, identifying a source that we can take a look at to obviously generate additional revenues here.
Correct. There is no estimate at this time because we don't know the volume
Right.
of what's going through Expedia or Booking or, I don't know, do truck drivers make those, do they book through that out on the road so they got a room to stay in when they get here? I don't know.
No, I have no idea.
I don't know.
And like you said, it'd be kind of hard to deliver a pro forma that would say, pro forma rather, that would say what the value of that is then too.
Correct. Okay, they even provided a model ordinance for us to take a look at if we wanted to.
Okay.
So, next, they have another finding. And this is for the telecom cost audit findings. What they found is that we're being charged for federal tax on our telecom for AT&T and I think Call One, yes. And so they have already, they are moving forward with contacting those companies. We have to agree for them to go ahead and contact those companies to get those taxes removed. It's going to be about $45 a month, so we're not talking like, we're going to go to the Bahamas next month, but it's every bit counts. And again, this is for discussion tonight for you to think about whether we want to move forward with that or not. Okay, the last thing I have is the PTAB settlement offer for 4350 West 129th. And 12701 South Costner. This is Leonian Enterprises, and this is a settlement agreement that the district has agreed to and that we have agreed to in the past. Odelson recommends that we take this settlement. And the settlement agreement is enclosed with this. Essentially, the valuation of the property is what it has been in the past. Any questions?
No, it's well written too, so it really gives a good explanation here then too at the same time. So, Josh, just to recap real quick, so obviously we've got our PTAB recommendation that you just said. As of our findings, they are, with the telecom charges, they're still working on that right now? Is that what you're saying?
We need to sign this in an agreement and allow them to contact the companies to get our taxes.
Right. And like you said, I saw a couple of the examples here. That, you could say you might be talking $45 a month.
Yeah.
But it's certainly still, it's ours. It's the tax that was paid on that then, too. You want to put that on the agenda for next week to get approval on that?
Sure.
Okay. And then as far as the online travel companies, did anyone have any questions on that right now? I know it's kind of new. We all just heard it at the same time. And Joyce and I talked about it recently, but I would like to see an example. I know, like we said, that there's no way that they can just give us a pro forma to say what we can get to. I'd like to see somebody else's,
Okay. Let me
just
see what
to
I can
it looked
find.
like.
Perhaps have the attorney review the sample ordinance.
That too, right. I'll forward that, to look at the sample ordinance, have that looked at. Becky, is that what you were writing on there? I just saw you writing something down. Okay, I'll double check that, thanks. And then, again, we're going to go, I'll work with you on this capital asset policy then,
I can
too.
bring it back again to another committee. It's
Yeah.
not, I want to make some progress.
Yeah.
And we need to be able to show the audit firm
Mm-hmm.
that we're moving forward. We're addressing those issues that they found in the audit last year so that they know that we're removing some of those risks.
I guess along the same lines, just much like Trustee Dalzell was saying, too, we've already got programs in place where, let's say, you can't buy a screwdriver without two different, actually, almost three signatures on there. You got a department head, and you have a trustee in that department, and a trustee in finance. So three people have eyes on this thing at the same time.
And the mayor.
Pardon?
And the mayor.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So in other words, that policy may suffice the way it stands, but we just need to approve a policy for that. Right?
We need to have a process in place.
Right.
Our process is not working right now because we're having to go through invoices at the end of the year to find the capital assets. So we need a process in place to capture those prior to those going through the expense lines. We need to know it's a capital asset coming through.
We have to do a better job. We've got a lot of the departments, I know the police department was doing it, we've got to add delete forms.
Right.
And when we purchase an asset, they go ahead and they do the add form for the inventory. Obviously, it's not being sent in the proper place.
I know when we first came on this board, I was the delete trustee all the time and stuff then too. So, I mean, we do have processes like that, and if we haven't pushed that more, I'm with you. Let's get that done.
Well, we probably have the process, we just don't have the policy.
That's what I'm saying,
That
right.
governs.
And we need to put it in writing.
Okay.
And then we need to follow that process every single time. That's the objective, so that it's consistent and the auditors can rely on that we are capturing those capital assets.
That's fine. All right. You and I will work on that then. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Joyce or Trustee McLaurin, anything else?
No, I'm good. Joyce?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fire Committee, Trustee Murphy.
I have a request for approval for Chief Szynski to attend the Illinois Fire Chiefs Annual Symposium in East Peoria in May for a cost not to exceed $613. And that's all I have, sir.
Chief, is that a training thing too, or?
Yeah, it's one of our annual symposiums with the Illinois Fire Chiefs, and then being on the executive board as a director, it's one of the ones I need to go to.
All right, thank you. Police and Traffic Safety, Trustee Dalzell.
Nothing this evening, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. Next, Public Work and Boat Launch, Trustee Juarez.
I have a presentation of the Public Works Department March 2021 monthly activity report. That's all, Mayor.
Okay. Boat Launch is open now.
Couple of weeks. For a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Sewer and Water, Trustee Nava Esparza.
Thank you. I have the presentation of the Water Department March 2021 monthly activity report, and that's all I have.
Okay. Building and Health Committee.
Trustee Dalzell or Trustee McLaurin, please.
The presentation of the Health Department March 2021 monthly activity report, and then the representation for a variance for a 6-foot-high fence in front of the building line at 12450 South Mansfield. Was that ever addressed through Roger? I know he's on vacation.
You know, I making myself a note right now. I will speak to him about that tomorrow and stuff then too. He's taking phone calls and stuff, so I'll talk to him about it.
Thank you. That's all for the committee, Mayor.
Yeah, because it doesn't look like anything in the packet has changed.
No,
There's no
I
additional
looked at the letters
information.
and, right.
No, I'll speak to him tomorrow about that. Human Resource and Insurance, Trustee Murphy.
No report tonight, Mayor.
Trustee, I'm going to, I told all department heads at our meeting last week, I'll be getting the employment engagements going this month yet too, so I hope to have that for everybody next month. We'll talk about it some more then too.
Did we need to approve something in insurance before May 1st, based on the RFP responses?
Yeah, you know,
Response.
I understand, but is there something that needs to be formally approved next week?
you know, Trustee, that was the reminder I gave you last week. You want that on your agenda for next week.
Yes.
We all received one bid, so it's kind of a no-brainer, but I need to issue my notice back to them where I gave a notice of termination, so I'll rescind that.
Okay.
I'll take care of it, but we only had the one bid, so, and Joyce, we did confirm the rate on that didn't change much either yet too, right? We were looking at that, at the new bid that came in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, you are correct.
Okay, so yeah, there wasn't a draft, there wasn't as much of a change as I was anticipating with the single bid, but it was a fair RFP that was submitted, and only one company submitted, our current carrier, and so you need to have it on your agenda next week for approval.
I'll get that on there.
Okay. Thank you. Now, Economic, Special Committee Reports, Economic Development, Trustee Nava Esparza.
Thank you. I have a request for an approval to hire an economic development intern candidate for a period not to exceed 300 hours at $12 per hour. I also just have another update. I attended a webinar on Friday that was facilitated by the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. They announced that there will be an Illinois rental payment program through IDA, which is the Illinois Housing Development Authority, that is scheduled to launch in May. So I encourage people to visit the IDA website to look at the eligibility criteria, and based on the information that was provided in the webinar, IDA is allowing landlords to fill out the application first, and then just requires the tenant to then confirm that they are an actual tenant and so forth. I think they learned from previous rental assistance programs that it might be challenging to get some renters to sign up for rental assistance programs. So landlords are encouraged to start the process and then encourage their tenants to complete the remainder of the application. But the website is up and running, so I encourage people to visit the Illinois Housing Development Authority website for more information. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you.
I guess I'm confused as to why do we have the motion again to hire the intern when we approved that last week?
We approve the position, not the individual.
Right.
Correct.
But we don't approve the individuals as a board generally. The department heads hire their staff. We don't get involved with any of the interns.
No department head for economic development.
So there's no department.
Yeah, I guess that would, I guess you're right. We don't have a department head for economic development other than, it would be under my direction and so forth
Yes.
then too. Village properties, trustee McGlover?
No report this evening, Mayor.
Okay. Trustee, I know we just saw it in our budget for next year, but one thing we do need to address sooner than later is a wrought iron fence that's almost fallen down at Heritage 1. And I saw a cost in there that he put in for that replacement he had too, but we need to take a look at that sooner than later. That's all. I mean, that whole thing is rotten. At Heritage 1, that fence is rotten out, and we're going to have to address that.
Yeah, no,
right
we
away.
definitely need to address that.
Yeah. Ordinance Legislation Committee?
Trustee Delzell or Trustee Navas-Esparza, please.
Nothing on here other than what we talked about, public forum with review of the ordinances regarding the MV hearings.
Okay.
That's all there.
Thank you. Planning and zoning and licenses, Trustee Juarez.
I have a presentation of a list of license dated March 26, 2021 through April 9, 2021. Is this the one I was removing, Mayor?
Oh, yeah, we pulled the other, and I will tell you too, Trustee, part of the conversation, not only does Gas and Wash, they're going to get together with the building commissioner. He's going to come in actually, and he's taking time off. He's got time coming, but he's going to come in for a meeting possibly tomorrow. But the other part of the conversation right now too, we're still discussing just maybe like a 2-year revenue share to try and make something happen yet too, because IDOT is asking quite a bit of this organization to make the lanes bigger and stuff like that. And we're trying to meet them halfway on what IDOT's asking for and stuff then too. So I'll have something to present to the board next week on that then too. I wanted him to speak to it, but I understand what he's asking for, and Joyce and I are working with him right now on that too.
So are we removing 2 and 3 then?
Yes, that's the same organization and everything.
Okay.
Did anyone have any presentations, petitions, or communications? Anybody have any unfinished business? Any new business? I do. I want to remind real quick too. I got another email today from a resident, and this can't come soon enough, but we really could use all hands on deck. April 24th, we're doing a village-wide cleanup day. We got so much garbage floating around this place, it's ridiculous. And IDOT was out today, and they cleaned up some of Cicero Avenue over near Borough Cemetery. But I know the medians still need to be addressed and so forth. No, we don't want to go out and do those. That's all IDOT's property. But everywhere else you look, near major intersections and corners, there's garbage everywhere, and we really could use the public's help. And certainly the board and so forth then too, to get out and help us on a cleanup day, April 24th from 9 till noon. Right, Beck? Okay. Mike, you have a couple guys available that day like we always do then too? Okay. All right, thanks. Then can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. We'll adjourn this meeting then at 8:50 p.m. Thank you for coming out tonight, folks.